Take a deep breath and let it go slowly. Let your shoulders drop just a little and feel your body settle. There's nothing you need to do right now, nowhere you need to be, except right here. Let the world outside your room drift away like mist across an early morning field. You are safe and warm and everything is okay. Gently close your eyes if you haven't already, and imagine yourself stepping into a place far away in both time and space. The air is crisp, filled with the scent of wood smoke and rain-soaked stone. A place where old secrets sleep beneath ivy-covered walls, and where time moves just a little bit slower. Our story tonight begins in the hills of old Wales, where the wind is always whispering. It snakes around jagged stones and castle towers, weaving through mossy forests and forgotten ruins. Nestled deep in the quiet folds of the land sits a manor ancient and gray, with towers like crooked fingers reaching toward the sky. This castle is not famous nor feared. It's simply known. Known for the stories told softly between candlelit breaths. Known for the way its windows flicker with light even when no one's inside. And known most of all for its silence, which is never quite empty. Here lives a young girl named Ellen. She is perhaps 14, though she doesn't know for sure. Time flows differently when you work in a place where the walls remember more than the people do. She is a servant, not highborn, not poor, just there like the stone benches and rusting chandeliers. Every morning, Ellen wakes before the sun, before the roosters crow, before even the hearth's last ember fades. Her bed is a pile of straw wrapped in linen beside the great kitchen hearth. She wakes to the crackle of fire being stoked and the soft, low sigh of wind pressing against the castle doors. This morning, like all mornings, she brushes crumbs from her apron and steps into the cool corridors with a small iron lantern. It glows gently, casting golden light onto the stones, making the dust in the air shimmer like sleeping fireflies. The floors here creak, but not always when stepped on. Sometimes Ellen will pause, frozen, as the groan of wooden planks echoes behind her, even though no one else is awake. She tells herself it's the cold, the settling of stone, the dreams of the castle itself, stretching before it slumbers again. Her first task is to fetch water from the courtyard well. She opens the heavy oak door, its hinges moaning low like an old man rising from bed, and steps outside. The dawn air is soft and cool against her cheeks. The fog hasn't lifted yet. It clings low to the ground, wrapping itself around the stone arches like a shawl. The well stands silent in the center of the cobbled yard, surrounded by bare trees that rustle quietly, though there is no wind. Ellen lowers the bucket carefully. The rope creaks with age, and when it hits the water far below, there's a splash, then another, quieter one, as if something else had just moved. She draws up the water, cold and clear, and carries it back inside. Her arms ache, but she doesn't complain. She never does. The castle has a way of listening, and Ellen believes it remembers every unkind word spoken under its roof. The older maids told her that once a warning wrapped in superstition, or maybe truth. Inside the castle, the air feels older, cooler. The windows are narrow slits in the stone, and the light outside seeps in like thin milk. Dust dances in the beams. Somewhere far above, a bell rings once. Ellen isn't sure who rang it. It's not time for prayers yet. Still, she nods softly in its direction. The bell tower is often empty. But someone or something always remembers the hour. She lights the fire in the great hall. The hearth is massive, carved with strange symbols whose meanings have long been forgotten. Above it, a tapestry hangs, its colors faded, its seam blurred. But if you look closely, there's a knight with no face, holding a banner made of mist. The story goes that the Lord's grandfather once returned from war with dreams that didn't belong to him. He never spoke again, only walked the halls with empty eyes until he vanished one foggy night. They say he still walked softly, and that the tapestry was stitched by a woman who dreamed of him every night. As the fire catches, Ellen kneels and watches it grow. The flames curl like sleeping cats, warm and golden. This is her favorite moment of the day, the quiet before the castle wakes. Before the Lord shouts, before the cook bangs her pots, before the guests arrive with their cold hands and colder smiles. Here in the glow of new flame, Ellen can almost pretend the castle is hers, that she belongs to its stones, not its people. Later, she polishes the silver in the dining room. The tall windows are covered in condensation, and sometimes, as she wipes them with a cloth, she sees figures in the mist. Not people outside, just shadows. Once, she saw a little girl with braided hair staring back at her. She blinked and the face was gone, but the birthmark on the glass remained, just for a moment. In the afternoon, she brings fresh linens to the guest chambers. There are 10, but only 3 are used. One has been locked since before she arrived. No one speaks of it. The key is kept in the steward's pocket, but sometimes Ellen hears faint music behind the door, a harp softly plucked. She once pressed her ear to the wood and heard a woman's voice humming, a lullaby she didn't know, but somehow remembered. The evenings are the hardest. That's when the castle shifts. The air grows thicker, and the torches flicker more violently. Ellen carries her lantern close and speaks to herself softly, not words, but gentle sounds, like the way her mother used to hum when spinning wool. It keeps her calm. It keeps her company. She sweeps the hallways, and sometimes she finds muddy footprints where no one has walked. They're always small, like a child, and always leading toward the chapel, and never back. She never follows them. Not anymore. Tonight, as she prepares the Lord's chamber, she pauses by the window. Rain has begun to fall, tapping lightly against the pane. The sky is a deep blue, almost black, and the wind has picked up. It whispers through the cracks in the stone, carrying the scent of wet leaves and cold iron. She lights the candles one by one, their flames quivering like tiny dancers. In the mirror beside the bed, she sees her own reflection, and behind it, a shape she doesn't recognize. She turns quickly, but no one is there. The candle sputters. She speaks aloud then, gently, as she always does when the shadows feel too near. "I'm only here to help," she whispers. "I don't mean to disturb." The air stills. The candle steadies. Ellen finishes her task, closes the door behind her, and lets the warmth of the fire guide her steps back to the kitchen. There, the cook is asleep, her snores soft and steady. The coals are still glowing. Ellen curls up in her bed of straw, pulling the blanket around her shoulders, and listens to the rain against the stone. Somewhere in the castle, a door creaks open. A soft footstep echoes, but Ellen is tired, and the warmth wraps around her like a lullaby. She closes her eyes, and the castle, old and breathing, watches over her once more. The wind outside the castle grows stronger now, but inside everything is quiet. The fire's glow fades into embers, and the soft crackling is like distant whispers from another room. Ellen dreams lightly. Her mind floats somewhere between sleep and memory, between story and silence. She dreams of mossy staircases, endless hallways, and hands that pass gently over stone. Morning comes not with the sun, but with the deep bell tolling from the watchtower. Once, then silence, then once again. It is not the hour bell this time. It is the morning bell. Slow, low, and not meant for waking, but for remembering. Ellen stirs beneath her blanket. She knows what that bell means. Someone has died. She rises without question, her bare feet soft against the flagstone floor. Her lantern is still warm from the night before. She relights it and steps out into the dim corridor. Others are already moving, shadows with aprons and hoods heading toward the chapel. No one speaks. The castle chapel is small, but filled with strange light. The windows are narrow and painted with faded saints, their eyes closed, their hands lifted in blessing or sorrow. Ellen takes her place near the back, where servants are meant to stand. At the front lies a shape under white cloth one of the older maids, Alice, whose steps had grown slower and whose stories had gotten longer. She was kind and always gave Evelyn a warm crust of bread when no one was looking. There are no sobs, only silence. In the old way, the dead are not mourned with wailing, but with stillness. The air hangs heavy. Ellen stares at the floor, then slowly lifts her gaze. In the shadows of the rafters, she sees movement slight and soundless, a shape among the beams, watching, but when she blinks, it's gone. Later, after the chapel has emptied and the body prepared for burial, Ellen walks the long stone hallway that leads to the old library. She has no duty there, but she often finds herself drawn to it. She'd go any more. The books are in Latin or older, and the scrolls crumble but not touched just right. But she likes the smell of parchment, the cool hush of the room, and the way the shelves seem to hum gently with knowledge. She finds her favorite corner, near a window with vines growing through the cracks. There she opens a book whose title she cannot read, but whose pages are filled with delicate drawings of herbs, stars, and old symbols. She traces them with her fingertip, imagining each one has a story, a memory, a secret. Just then, a draft curls around her ankle. She turns. No door is open, no window wide. Yet something cold has moved through the air. She listens and hears the faintest sound. Not footsteps, not voices, but something older, a sigh perhaps, or a breath long held. She does not run. Instead, she presses the book closed and whispers, "I will return tomorrow." Outside the library, she passes the hallway that leads to the locked chamber, the one with the music. Today the door is open. It should not be. She stops. The light inside is different, brighter, like morning sun filtered through water. The room smells of lavender and old wood. Her breath catches, not from fear, but awe. The chamber is not empty. It is furnished, though it has not been touched in decades. A dressing table with a mirror, a bed with fresh sheets, a harp resting near the window, strings still. Then a note of music, soft and clear. Ellen steps inside. Her heart is slow and calm, like the lull of waves against a boat. The harp plays again, but no one sits beside it. She walks to the mirror, and there, for a moment, sees another girl, her age. Same eyes, gown of pale blue with a crown of white flowers. They stare at each other, and neither one blinks. Then the light dims, the mirror falls, and the girl is gone. Ellen steps back. Her hands tremble not with fear, but wonder. She closes the door behind her, slowly, carefully, and walks the rest of the corridor in silence. She tells no one. The older servants would call her cursed, or touched, or worse. But Ellen knows what she saw, and something within her begins to understand the castle is not haunted in the way people think. It does not trap the dead. It remembers them. It listens. It carries them gently within its stone bones. That night she dreams again, but this time the castle dreams with her. She stands in the courtyard. The fog is gone. The sky above is filled with stars so clear, so close, she could name them. Around her the castle glows not with firelight, but something softer, like memory. She sees the little girl in the mirror, walking the ramparts. She sees Alice smiling with fresh bread in her hand. She sees the knight with no face, kneeling in front of the chapel. And she sees herself standing in the center of it all, not just as servant, but part of the story, part of the place. She wakes before dawn. The embers are still warm. She pulls on her cloak, lights her lantern, and begins her tasks. But something has changed. The halls feel warmer, the shadows less sharp. The wind whispers her name, not with warning, but welcome. And when the bell rings once for the morning hour, she smiles. Ellen moves through the morning as if wrapped in a soft blanket of knowing. The castle breathes with her now. Its silence no longer strange. Its sounds no longer frightening. The creaks, the whispers, the flickers of unseen light. They are part of her day, like the way her hands remember the path of each stone stair, like the smell of rain before it arrives, like the hush before the bell. As she polishes the carved wooden banisters on the grand staircase, her mind wanders. She thinks of the girl in the mirror, the way her gaze had been steady and kind. There had been no fear and her only waiting, like someone expecting a letter long overdue. Ellen wonders what kept her there, what she watched for, what story she had left behind in that locked room. She doesn't try the door again. She doesn't need to. She feels its presence in the hallway now, a quiet warmth behind the wood, a song that hums when the castle is very still. Instead, she goes about her work gently. She dusts the old portraits whose faces have faded into ghostly shapes. She presses lavender into the corners of the bedchambers to keep the moths away. And always, always she listens. In the afternoon, rain begins to fall again. Not the cold, sharp rain of early spring, but the soft kind that clings to the air like mist. It makes the castle feel older, wrapped in wool and waiting. Ellen carries a tray of bread and broth to the upper chambers, where a guest has taken ill. A visiting scholar from the abbey, pale and frail, who speaks in half-formed prayers. He barely touches the food. Instead, he watches the corners of the room with frightened eyes. They speak Latin here, he mutters, voice brittle. The walls, they whisper it. Ellen nods once. She does not answer. She tucks the blanket tighter around his legs and leaves, without sound. Not all ears are ready to hear the castle. Some hear only what they fear. Later, she walks past the library again. The door is open now, more often than not. The castle seems to want her there. Inside, the fire has already been lit, though she lit none herself and on the reading table rests a book she has never seen. Its cover is warm leather, and its pages hold drawings of people not saints or kings, but common folk. A girl sweeping a hearth, a boy carrying a lantern, a woman beside a loom. The last page shows a castle, this castle, but smaller, as if remembered, not drawn. She touches the page softly. The ink does not smudge, though it looks fresh. She breathes in the scent of the book dust and cloves and something else, something like rosemary and ash. She closes it carefully, and when she looks up, the window beside her is open just a crack. The wind has quieted. The rain taps gently on the sill. She smiles. Evening draws near. The sky is the color of pewter, and the fire in the great hall burns low. Ellen walks through the corridor with her lantern, checking windows, dousing candles, whispering her good nights to each empty room. As she turns down the west wing, one rarely used, now she hears a sound. Faint, but familiar. Laughter. Not cruel, not loud, just a child's soft giggle, carried by the air. She pauses, breath held. The sound comes again closer. Then the quick patter of footsteps. She raises her lantern, but sees only dust drifting like feathers. "Hello?" she whispers, not afraid. The footsteps stop. "I won't follow. I just wanted to say goodnight." The corridor is quiet, but as she turns to go, she finds a small doll placed neatly on the floor behind her. It's hand-stitched, with a little red ribbon around its neck. The thread is old, the fabric faded, but it smiles. She picks it up and holds it gently in both hands. "Thank you," she whispers. "She's lovely." She places the doll on the windowsill nearby, tucking its legs so it sits upright. The castle seems warmer after that. That night, as she lies down in her straw bed, she watches the fire until it's only coals, then ashes, then nothing but warmth in the stone. She doesn't need a blanket. She feels watched, not the kind that frightens, but the kind that comforts. Like being read to by someone who loves you, like being remembered. And when she sleeps, she dreams not of corridors or echoes or locked doors, but of music. A harp played slowly, a lullaby in no language she knows and yet understands. She dreams of walking the battlements with the girl from the mirror, of laughing with the child whose doll now keeps watch by the window, of a castle full of souls, all gently woven together, stitch by stitch, memory by memory, like a story passed down from heart to heart. She wakes before the bell, not startled, not tired, just calm. The sky outside is still dark, but the stars have faded. Dawn is near. She lights her lantern, brushes the straw from her dress, and opens the kitchen door. The wind greets her with a sigh, and somewhere above a raven caws once, then is silent. Ellen smiles. The castle breathes. And so does she.
The early morning hush wraps around her like a shawl as she steps through the quiet corridor. Each footfall is soft, each creak in the wood like an old friend clearing its throat. The lantern in her hand glows softly, painting the walls with flickers of gold and amber. The air smells of stone and distant rain, with just a hint of warm bread rising in the kitchen, half though she knows she hasn't yet lit the oven. Still, the scent lingers, as if the castle remembers what comes next and greets her with it. In the dining hall, she opens the shutters an inch at a time. Outside, the sky blushes with the first hints of daylight, streaks of peach and ash grey woven together like the edge of a dream. The trees in the courtyard drip quietly from the night's rain, their branches heavy and still. The wind carries bird song from somewhere distant, and for a moment Ellen just listening, letting the sound settle into her like warm tea in a cup. She begins to set the long table not for a feast, just for the early meal. Bread and jam, a little cheese, spoons laid just so. As she places each piece, her fingers move with a sort of reverence. These small tasks mundane to others are sacred to her now. Each motion is a verse in a silent poem between herself and the castle. When the others wake, the rhythm of the day begins again. But it feels different now, gentler. The cook hums softly instead of barking orders. The steward nods to her without speaking. Even the lord, seated tall and solemn at the head of the table, seems quieter, as if the walls themselves have urged him to hush. Ellen moves through her chores with calm, careful hands, washing linens, carrying firewood, sweeping the corridors that twist like stone ribbons through the heart of the manor. Each task brings her a step closer to something she can't quite name, something old and quiet and waiting. By midday, the rain has returned, falling in soft curtains against the windows. She stands beside the glass in the north tower, watching it trace silver lines down the pane. From this height, the land stretches far and green, and hills roll into one another like sleeping beasts, and a river cuts through the land below, winding and glistening. She doesn't hear the footsteps behind her at first. Then soft, deliberate, a presence, not threatening, simply there. She turns slowly, and standing in the doorway is the girl from the mirror. This time, she's real. She looks the same pale blue dress, crown of withered blossoms, eyes that seem to hold too many memories. Ellen feels no fear, only wonder. They don't speak. There's no need. The girl steps forward and places something in Ellen's hand. It's a small wooden charm, carved with a spiral. The edges are worn, smooth, and a piece of faded ribbon is looped through the top. Ellen doesn't ask what it means. She simply closes her fingers around it, nodding once. The girl smiles. Then, as quietly as she appeared, she turns and walks back down the hallway, her bare feet silent against the cold stone. Ellen stands for a long moment, her hand warm around the charm, her breath steady. That evening, she brings her lantern to the tower stairs. These are the oldest part of the manor crumbling, uneven and avoided by most. But tonight, she feels drawn to them. She climbs slowly, the spiral steps winding like a secret. The wind whistles through cracks in the stone, and her lantern sways with each gust. At the top, there is a wooden door she has never seen open. Tonight, it is inside is a narrow chamber with windows on all sides, a watchroom. In the center, a chair, and beside it, a book. She steps forward and brushes dust from the cover. The book opens easily, its pages filled not with ink, but with pressed flowers. Dozens of them, each one labeled with a neat hand. Lavender for memory, sage for protection, poppy for sleep, rosemary for morning. She turns each page with care, her fingers grazing the paper like touching a friend's cheek. In the back of the book is a note to the one who listens. The castle remembers, and now, so do you. She closes the book slowly and sets it back in its place. Outside, the wind shifts. The rain has stopped. The clouds part just enough for moonlight to spill through the glass, painting her face in silver. She sits in the chair and lets the silence wash over her. Not empty, not haunted, alive. Below, the castle dreams, and above, so does she.
The moonlight lingers as if reluctant to leave her. It bathes the room in a gentle glow, softening the edges of the stones, gilding the old wood, casting dancing shadows that sway but never frighten. Ellen leans her head back against the chair and closes her eyes just for a moment. The air is still, but not stale alive with quiet watching. She feels it all around her, the presence of something timeless, neither ghost nor God, but memory-giving breath. She drifts into a waking dream. In it, the castle is young. Its stones are new, pale, and sharp against the sky. Workers pass through the halls, laying timber, humming work songs. A child runs across the fresh courtyard, her laughter echoing from the walls. That child is not Ellen, and yet she feels like her. She sees the kitchens bustling, the tapestries being woven by hands, still stained with buried dyes. The chapel windows are yet uncolored, the bell in the tower yet uncast. Everything smells of pine and earth and beginnings. Then the dream shifts. She sees storms come and go. Years pass. New faces live in these halls. Some stay, some vanish. A knight returns wounded and never speaks again. A woman sews her grief into thread. A servant girl writes poems no one will read and hides them beneath the floorboards. Lives pass like leaves in wind, but the castle holds each one gently, never forgetting, never letting go. When Ellen opens her eyes, it is still night, but she feels rested, whole. She rises and descends the tower stairs, each step slow and sure. The lantern is nearly out, but its dim orange glow is enough. As she walks through the halls, she hums softly to herself, a tune she doesn't remember learning. Maybe it came from the harp, maybe from the girl in blue, maybe from the castle itself. Down in the great hall, the hearth has gone dark. She kneels before it, adds 2 logs, and stirs the coals with care. A breath of heat rises, and flame returns. Shadows flicker along the old stones, and the room feels full again, like someone has just left and may return at any moment. She lays the charmed spiral and ribbon above the hearth, nestled between a candle stub and a sprig of rosemary, an offering, a promise, a sign that she understands now. In the morning, the charm is gone. In its place is a pressed violet, delicate and purple blue. That day, she walks with a lightness in her step. The steward asks her nothing. The cook hums the same tune she did the night before. She hears the wind murmur through the east wing, and it almost sounds like laughter. By midweek, a traveling painter arrives. He's old, with a face like weathered leather and eyes that see too much. He sets up in the courtyard to sketch the manor. Ellen brings him tea. He thanks her kindly. This place, he says, looking at the spires, has more stories than a king's court. She smiles. You can hear them? He taps his temple. No, but I can feel them. Then, after a pause, he adds, you belong here. She doesn't know how to answer that, so she just nods and lets the words settle in her chest. That night, as she dusts the old armory, she finds a locket tucked between 2 rusted shields. Inside is a painting tiny and cracked with age of a girl with green eyes and the braid over her shoulder. Her features are familiar. Ellen holds the locket gently, tracing the frame. It must be very old. She leaves it on the altar in the chapel. The bell rings once, as if in thanks, and in her dreams that night she sees the girl from the locket walking with the knight from the tapestry. Neither speaks. They simply walk together through the long corridor, hand in hand, as the torches light before them, without flame. When Ellen wakes, she finds one of the unlit torches in that very hall still warm to the touch. Wordless things like that keep happening. Small things. Find things. A door that opens when her hands are full. A draft that carries away the dust before she can sweep it. A tune echoing from the rafters just when she feels most alone. She begins to wonder if she's becoming part of the castle in more ways than one. She doesn't feel trapped, not like the tailies of haunted places. She feels held. In the library, a new book appears then with a soft leather cover. She opens it to find the first page blank, the second too, but the third bears her name written in neat, looping script. She doesn't remember writing it. Each day afterward, she finds more pages filled, tiny sketches of her lantern, of the doll from the windowsill, of her hands folding linen. They're not perfect, but they're real. Someone is watching. Someone is recording. Or perhaps the castle is writing her in, and she lets it. Days fold into each other, like pages turning in a book too loved to be put down. The castle breathes in rhythm with Ellen's quiet life, its sighs echoing her steps, its creaks answering her thoughts. The other servants come and go, passing her with nods, polite words, distant smiles. But Ellen feels something they don't. Not fear, not dread, something older and softer. A bond, a welcome. On the third day of the painter's visit, he shows her his finished sketch. It's the castle, yes, but not quite as it is now. The ivy is less, the towers sharper, the walls unmarred by time. In the courtyard stands a girl in a linen dress, her lantern held high. She is looking straight at the viewer. Ellen recognizes herself instantly. "You didn't pose for this," she says. The painter shrugs, smiling faintly. "Didn't need to." He rolls the parchment gently, hands it to her without asking. Later that night, she tucks it under her mattress, where she used to hide bread crusts when she was smaller, hungrier, unsure if she belonged. The paper is warm from his hands. She touches it once before letting it go. That evening, after supper is cleaned and the embers begin their slow glow, Ellen takes her lantern through the west wing again. The doll still sits where she placed it on the windowsill. Beside it, she pauses, watching. Her reflection flickers in the dull metal. For a moment, she thinks she sees someone else standing behind her. But when she turns, there is only air and the faint smell of beeswax and steel. She walks on. The next morning, something strange happens. The steward, a man of stiff posture and narrowed eyes, approaches her as she is scrubbing the steps of the guest hall. He clears his throat. "The Lord has taken notice of you." Ellen looks up, unsure what to say. He continues, tone flat. "He has asked that you prepare the blue room for his evening study. The blue room. It hasn't been used in years. It's filled with old tapestries and faded velvet chairs and the scent of crushed herbs. It was once the private retreat of the Lord's grandmother, a woman known for her visions and her stubborn silence. Ellen has only cleaned its threshold before, never dared to step inside. "Yes," she says quietly, "I'll see to it." She finishes her current task, dries her hands, and makes her way to the room. Its door is heavy, the handle shaped like a curled vine. When she pushes it open, the air is cooler, but not unpleasant. The dust here smells sweet, like dried flowers and candle smoke. The windows are tall, draped in gauze that shifts softly with the breeze. She begins to She bends to pick it up. It is a letter, not addressed, not signed, just a single line of faded ink. To those who feel the silence, know that you are never truly alone. The house remembers. The house keeps. Ellen folds it gently and slips it into her apron pocket. That night, the blue room glows with candlelight. The Lord sits within, face unreadable, eyes focused on the fire. Ellen serves him tea and says nothing. She is not meant to speak unless spoken to. As she turns to leave, he stops her with a murmur. This place has changed since you came. Ellen stands still. He sips. It's quieter, but less cold. She says nothing. You may go. She leaves without sound. But the warmth in her chest burns brighter than any candle. Back in the kitchen, the cook hands her a slice of sweet cake without a word. She doesn't question why. She simply eats it, savoring every bite. Later, tucked into her straw bed, she removes the note from her apron and reads it again. You are never truly alone. The house remembers. The house keeps. She falls asleep with those words in her mind, like a lullaby woven from stone and time and fire. Ellen dreams again. This time she walks not through the castle she knows, but through one layered in years of version. To name. She follows the music. It leads her to the chapel, not the one of now, but of long ago. Its windows are plain, and the walls are not yet heavy with incense and secrets. In the center of the room is a child young, barefoot, spinning slowly with arms outstretched, humming to no one at all. Ellen steps forward. The child doesn't stop spinning. She hears a voice, soft, not quite spoken. She stays behind, so the house would not be lonely. Ellen tries to ask who, but her mouth will not move. Only her breath escapes, gentle and slow. The child finally stops, smiling wide. Her eyes are pale green, and Ellen knows them. They are hers. She wakes just before dawn. The room is still dark, but she feels as though she's glowing from the inside. Her chest rises gently, her arms resting still and warm against her blanket. The fire in the hearth is out, but the stones are warm. Something is shifting. Later that morning, as she carries a basket of linens up the spiral stairs, she hears a door creak behind her. Not just any door, the one to the attic. A place strictly forbidden to all servants. Locked, always barred. But now it is open. Ellen pauses, looking behind her. No one in sight. Only the soft morning light drifting through the hall, dusting the steps like flowers. doesn't touch anything at first, only walks slowly, carefully, respectfully. In the far corner there is a mirror, tall, rimmed in oak, draped in a linen sheet. She lifts it gently, and there in the glass is not her reflection, not quite. It is her just, but behind her stands every version of the castle she's dreamed, all the people she's seen, the knight, the girl with the ribboned doll, the woman with thread in her lap, the servant who scribbled poems on old scraps. They stand in silence, but they are not ghosts. They are memories. They are the house. Ellen does not weep. She simply nods, and the mirror fogs over once, then clears. Her reflection returns, but her eyes look a little older, wiser, quieter. She steps back, replaces the cloth, and leaves the attic as it was. Downstairs, the castle feels lighter, not changed, just at peace. In the days that follow, she notices things shifting gently. The old tapestry in the great hall is replaced not by hands she sees, but by one she feels. It is now a new scene, a girl by a hearth, a castle rising behind her, a lantern glowing in her hand. The steward no longer questions her when she walks beyond the servant quarters. The Lord asks her once, in a voice softer than she thought he had, if she knows it around her wrist. She begins to sleep longer, more peacefully. Her dreams are no longer strange. They are soft, familiar, like walking through a house you once lived in and finding your childhood bed just as you left it. She wakes smiling. One morning, the bell in the tower rings thrice, not for mourning, not for danger, but for change. The painter leaves with a sketchbook full of scenes that no longer exist. He tells her quietly, some places draw breath only when someone listens closely enough. She thanks him with her smile, and he bows deeper than expected. A letter arrives from a neighboring estate requesting help. Their manner is cold, their halls too quiet. They seek someone sensitive, familiar with silence. Ellen reads the letter by candlelight, then folds it, and decides to stay. Not out of fear, not because she must, but because she is no longer a visitor here. She is part of the story now, part of the stone. And every night, as the lantern glows softly on her bedside, she listens to the quiet, to the laughter in the rafters, to the sigh of old staircases, to the castle, gently remembering her. Spring comes slowly to the Welsh hills, like a dream learning how to wake up. The trees bud shyly at first. The grass grows thick and soft. The rain turns warm. Accepts its final page. She no longer carries the lantern. She doesn't need to. Wherever she walks, the light follows. Not real light, just a sense of warmth, of recognition. One morning, she finds a book on her pillow. It's leather-bound, thin, with no title on the cover. Inside, the first page reads only, "The Listener." The rest is blank. She closes it slowly and holds it to her chest. She knows what it's for. She begins writing in it that night. Not long entries, just memories, little pieces of the castle that she doesn't want to vanish. The color of the velvet in the blue room. The way the windows hum in the west wing when it rains. The name of the little girl and her dreams, Mari. The taste of the tea the cook brews with dried mint from the chapel garden. Every night she adds one page. Every morning the ink seems just a bit darker, as if the castle itself is helping to write. One afternoon, the Lord's niece arrives. A girl of 7, dressed in soft wool and wide-eyed from the journey. She clings to her nursemaid and hides behind skirts when approached. But when Ellen kneels to greet her, she peeks out just enough to stare. "You're the girl from the window," she whispers. Ellen blinks. "What window?" "The one upstairs, where the doll is. You were waving." Ellen smiles gently. Ellen nods. "I think it did." The days stretch longer now. Warm sun spills into rooms that once knew only candlelight. The tapestry in the great hall changes again, now showing 2 girls walking side by side, one holding a lantern, the other holding a doll. The cook says nothing, just pats Ellen's shoulder and leaves an extra sweet cake on her plate. In the attic, the mirror begins to show more than reflections. It shows seasons, moments, a girl dancing by firelight, a knight kissing a letter before riding into mist, an old woman smiling at a girl with a lantern. When Ellen touches the glass, the images fade, but the warmth lingers. One evening, she walks the corridor and finds the locked room open again. Inside, it's brighter than she remembers. Not candlelight, but something softer like moonlight filtered through memory. The harp rests by the window, its strings plucked gently in the breeze, but no one touches them. Ellen sits beside it, her fingers hovering, unsure. She plucks one note, then another. A melody begins, soft, wandering, familiar as a heartbeat. The girl in blue appears in the reflection of the glass once more, standing beside her. But Ellen no longer flinches. She smiles. They play together, one with hands, the other with memory. A lullaby is born. Rather softens at the edges. The ivy is fuller. The wind carries the scent of honeysuckle and baking bread. The halls feel cooler than the air outside, shaded and timeless. Ellen rises each morning with the same quiet purpose as always, but something has shifted, not in her steps, but in her knowing. She no longer wonders if the castle is alive. She knows it is, and it knows her. One morning, as she dusts the shelves in the library, she notices a scroll that had never been there before. It's tied with a ribbon the color of ash, and tucked beneath it is a small key. She doesn't take it as a command, just an invitation. She carries the scroll and key to the chapel, her favorite place for reading. The light there always seems gentler. She unties the ribbon, careful not to tear the old paper, and reads words written in a fine slanted hand. For the guardian of stillness, there are doors only you can open. She holds the key in her palm for a long time. It is not cold, not sharp, just right. She doesn't yet know which door it belongs to. She's not in a hurry to find out. Later that evening, she walks through the east corridor, the one with all the old portraits. The faces on the wall seem softer now, their painted gazes less stern, more curious. She's begun greeting them by name ones she's guessed or given herself. Lady Anne with the silver eyes, Sir Maddox whose cloak never quite looked right, the child with the missing shoes. She speaks to them quietly as she sweeps. She swears she once saw Lady Anne's lips curl into a smile, just slightly. When the stars begin to appear, she makes her way to the roof walk, a place too bother to go. From there, she can see the hills roll endlessly into each other, dotted with trees and tiny farms. She stands with the breeze tugging at her sleeves, the night air brushing her cheeks like a blessing. She closes her eyes, and in the dark behind her lids, she feels it heartbeat like the castle, the land, her, all humming gently in unison. She opens her eyes and sees, in the shadow of the moonlight, a faint glow coming from a tower she thought abandoned. The bell tower. The next morning, the key in her apron feels heavier. She follows its pull. The steps to the bell tower are old, dust-covered, silent. Each one creaks as she climbs, but it's not the kind of creak that warns, it's the kind that greets. At the top, she finds a door, iron with an old lock. She places the key into the slot, and it turns smoothly, almost too easily. Inside is a round room, open to the sky above. The bell hangs in the center, ancient and dark. Around it are carvings in the stone, names, symbols, spiral patterns, just like the charm she keeps around her wrist. She runs her fingers over them. They hum faintly beneath her touch, like something half awake. There is no wind, yet the bell moves slightly, a slow sway. Ellen doesn't try to stop it. She watches. The sound it makes is not loud, not sharp. It's a tone so low, so deep, it seems to resonate inside her bones. When it fades, the room feels different. Not lighter, not darker, just dot, dot, dot listening. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. She sits at the edge of the room, legs tucked beneath her, and writes in her book, not about the bell, just a single line, the sky sang. That night, when she returns to her bed, she finds a small loaf of honey bread beside her blanket. No note, just the bread, still warm. She eats it with a smile and drifts to sleep with crumbs on her lips and starlight on her face. The days stretch long and golden now. The child visitor has gone home, but before leaving, she pressed a tiny necklace into Ellen's hand. It holds a button from the doll they once watched disappear. For remembering, the girl whispered, eyes wide with meaning. Ellen wears it beneath her collar. It hums when she sings. The steward falls ill. Not gravely, just enough to keep to his bed. Ellen is asked to mind the gate for a day. She sits in the tiny watchroom, feet swinging, lantern beside her. Travelers pass occasionally, merchants, messengers, a widow with a tired mule. Each time, Ellen nods politely. Each Each time she feels the castle listening through her, approving. One man asks, "Who owns this place now?" "The Lord's hardly seen," Helen replies gently. "The castle tends itself." He laughs, not unkindly, but as he walks away, he keeps looking back at her as if unsure whether he's seen a girl or a story. That evening, the locked room on the 3rd floor creaks open again. Inside is nothing but a mirror. Ellen steps close. She sees herself, of course, but behind her now is not the usual dim hallway. It's the chapel, filled with light. The blue room, fresh with flowers. The attic with every trunk open. The library, lit by invisible hands. It is not a reflection of space. It is a reflection of memory. She touches the mirror and whispers, "I'll remember everything." And the mirror does not fall. It shines. The autumn air arrives without asking. One morning the breeze is simply cooler, the leaves slightly more golden, the sky a little more fragile. The castle responds in kind. Fires are lit earlier. Blankets are pulled from cedar chests. The scent of apples and spice wafts through the halls. Ellen wraps herself in a shawl that once belonged to no one she's met, and yet fits her shoulders as if it remembers them. The bell tower sways more now, gently echoing with the wind. She visits it often. She no longer writes only by candlelight or in the quiet corners. Now she carries her book with her, tucked under her arm like an extra limb, ready to record whatever the day offers. She no longer wonders if the book belongs to her or if she belongs to it. In the chapel, she begins leaving single-pressed flowers on each stone bench. No one tells her to. No one removed them. One evening, she finds another beside her own offering. A stem of time, curled neatly. It's the castle's way of nodding back. The tapestry in the great hall shifts once again. Now it shows a girl holding a book, seated by a window, with a candle in the shape of a spiral. The moon outside is full. A raven perches on the sill. The details are so fine it feels like breathing to look at it. The steward remarks offhandedly, "That's new," but he does not ask where it came from. Ellen begins to sing now, quietly. In rooms she once tiptoed through, she sings lullabies with no words, just melodies that seem to rise from the stone and return to it when she's done. The sound travels. A maid tells her she heard music in her dreams. The Lord says nothing, but he lingers longer in the corridors when she's nearby. The child returns one afternoon, her hair longer and eyes wiser. She brings a tin of clove cookies and a folded note. "I miss the walls that talk." Ellen hugs her tightly, and the girl whispers, "Did the castle miss me?" Ellen nods. It never forgets. They walk the halls together again. The girl points out new shadows and asks if they're people or stories. Ellen answers, "Sometimes they're both." They find a mirror room and sit beside it, their reflections glowing gently in the afternoon sun. The girl places her cookie tin in front of the glass, and the next morning only a single cookie remains. "I think I'd like the ginger one," she says solemnly. On the eve of the harvest moon, a letter arrives bearing no seal. It is tucked beneath Ellen's pillow, the ink still fresh. It reads, "When you are ready, the garden will bloom again." She knows the place. It's the overgrown patch behind the chapel, thorny, wild, forgotten. A place of broken fences and nettles and memories too stubborn to uproot. She goes there at dusk, wearing gloves and carrying a trowel. She doesn't expect to find anything, but when she begins to dig, she uncovers not roots, but stones, small, flat, carved ones. Each one bears a name she recognizes from dreams, from whispers, from the pages of the library. She lines them up carefully, cleans them, weeds the soil, waters it with care. By the next week, green shoots begin to sprout. No one else tends the garden, no one asks about it. But something leaves a bundle of seeds by the door each morning. She plants each one. Time passes gently, like soft footfalls on a road. The castle no longer surprises her with strange events. Now with small gestures. The candle that stays lit during a storm. The floorboard that doesn't squeak when she's tired. The fire that lights itself when she's cold. The kind of magic that comes not from spells, but from love. One night she dreams of the girl in blue again. They walk side by side through the halls, and the girl hums a tune Ellen knows by heart. As they reach the library, the girl says, "When the story ends, don't forget the beginning." Ellen wakes with the words in her mind. She writes them in her book. Beneath them, the ink swirls on its own, and a tiny symbol appears, a spiral, drawn not by her hand. She breathes in the quiet. Autumn deepens. The trees begin to let go their leaves. The wind carries them in twirling dances through the courtyard. Ellen watches them fall from the bell tower, one by one, like pages being turned. She does not feel sad. She feels full, as though she has lived many lives, and each one has gently folded into the next. The days grow shorter, and the mornings stretch with soft blue mist. Dew clings to the edges of the windows like silver threads, and Ellen finds herself lighting candles even before the sun has risen fully. The castle hums a quieter tune now, slow and steady, like an old lullaby sung beneath thick quilts. Each stone seems to sleep longer. Each shadow lingers just a little more, not menacing, just reluctant to move Dot in the blue room. She places fresh rosemary on the windowsill. The light filters through the dried leaves and casts dappled green across the velvet chair. She often sits here now, not to clean, not to prepare, but simply to be. She listens to the sound of woods settling, of wind pushing against the walls, of her own breath. Sometimes she hears footsteps from above her slow and bare. She never checks. She no longer needs to. She just smiles. One morning she walks into the kitchen to find the hearth already burning and the table set for one. A bowl of porridge steams gently beside a folded cloth. On the cloth is a message stitched in green thread. For the keeper of silence. She eats slowly, savoring each bite. The porridge is warm and sweet, with a hint of clove. She doesn't know who made it, or when, but she thanks the room anyway. Outside, the garden has bloomed more than she expected. Marigolds nod beside foxglove and yarrow. These drift lazily between blossoms, unbothered by her presence. She tends the garden now as if she were tending a memory. Every weed pulled feels like a forgotten sorrow being lifted. Every bloom a story retold. She names each row after someone she's met in dreams. Murray's violets, Alice's thyme, the night's silver leaf. She hums while she works. One afternoon, the Lord himself comes to stand beside her as she waters the new shoots. He doesn't speak at first, just watches. Then, in a low, thoughtful voice, he says, "This land was once barren. It remembers grief." Ellen doesn't look up. She only nods. It also remembers gentleness. He doesn't answer, but she hears it sigh his boots crunching on gravel, leaving no footprints behind. That night, she writes, even the stone can soften. The little girl returns again, not with her nursemaid this time, but with a page boy who carries her satchel and a pouch of candied ginger. She hugs Ellen tightly and says, I had a dream you lived in the stars. Ellen smiles. Maybe I do. They walk through the chapel together, the girl touching each bench like greeting an old friend. She asks if the castle still sings. Ellen leads her to the attic, to the mirror. This time it shows the dance figures spinning slowly in candlelight, their feet not touching the floor. The girl watches in silence for a long time. Are they ghosts? She whispers. No, Ellen answers gently. They're memories. Be good. Kind. The girl leaves the candied ginger by the mirror dot in the morning. A strand of her hair ribbon is braided into Ellen's shawl. The days continue in their slow, golden rhythm. Ellen mends a window pane with glass she finds in the cellar colored. Soft blue, the same hue as the girl's dress. When the light shines through it in the late afternoon, it floods the hallway with a soft glow. She calls it the hour of kindness. The cook begins baking bread exactly then. A cat appears one evening and curls up beside the hearth. No one knows where it came from. Ellen feeds it scraps. It never leaves. The bell tower speaks only during storms now. Low, careful tones that seem to echo across the hills. Travelers say they can hear it in the woods, even miles away. Some say it keeps wolves away. Others say it draws the lost home. Ellen just calls it listening. One evening, a new visitor arrives, a woman with silver-threaded hair and eyes that seem to recognize every corner before she turns it. She carries no luggage, only a cane and a bundle of dried heather. She meets Ellen by the chapel garden and says softly, I dreamed this place was waiting for me. Ellen smiles. It was. They sit together beneath the archway, sharing tea. From the same cup. The woman says her name is Idris, but that names don't matter much anymore. She speaks of places Ellen's never seen, but feels as though she has mountains like folded cloth, seas that sing, forests with branches older than stone. When the woman rises to leave, she hands Ellen a folded paper. Inside is a drawing, the castle, glowing from within. Every window lit, and in the highest window, a girl with a lantern smiling. She remembered you, Idris says. Ellen hugs her. The woman's shawl smells like smoke and pine. The next morning, the drawing is gone from her table, but on her wall, someone has painted it, small, delicate, glowing. She touches it once, and the paint feels warm. The days grow colder again. Frost kisses the edges of the windows. Smoke curls gently from every chimney. The air carries the scent of wood and cinnamon. Ellen begins knitting a scarf using yarn left by someone long gone. Each stitch is slow, careful. She hums as she weaves. She knows what she's making isn't just for warmth. It's a story, wrapped in wool to be worn around the heart. She places it on the chapel bench one night dot in the morning. It's gone, but there are footprints in the frost. Bare, small, leading away, and her heart is full. The first snow comes without warning. One moment, the wind hums through the east like a lullaby, and the next, the sky is full of feathers. Thick flakes fall in slow spirals, blanketing the garden, softening the towers, turning every corner. of the castle into a secret. Ellen wakes to find the world outside her window transformed. The trees wear white cloaks, the courtyard path has vanished beneath powder, and even the gargoyles look gentler beneath their new coats of snow. She steps outside in her boots and wool shawl, the air crisp and full of stillness. Each breath falls before her, lingering like a whisper. She doesn't rush. She walks slowly, savoring the hush. The snow hushes everything. It's the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person awake in the whole world, and yet not alone. The chapel bells do not ring. The wind doesn't blow, but the castle hums from within, as if warmed by its own memory. She brings fresh kindling to the hearth and lights the fire with practiced ease. The flames crackle like distant conversation, and the scent of pine wood drifts up the chimney. She warms her hands, then carries a basket of cloth to the laundry hall, where the cold air seeps in through the stone. There's a new icicle growing. By the arched window, long and delicate, like glass spun from breath, she leaves it undisturbed. That evening, a small note appears on her pillow again. No handwriting this time, just a pressed snowdrop flower folded in linen. A winter bloom, impossible, almost. She smiles out in the library. The fireplace roars without coaxing. She curls in her favorite corner with the book open on her knees. It's almost full now. Each page inked carefully, steadily. Her handwriting has grown more confident over time, looping and soft. She reads aloud to the silence. Today the snow fell like wishes. The bell did not ring, but I still heard it. I think I dreamed of being remembered. The room listens. She feels it in her bones. Later, she checks the attic. The mirror reflects only the firelight tonight. No visions, no faces. Just herself, wrapped in her shawl, cheeks pink with cold. But there's comfort in that, too. Sometimes memory needs rest. She descends to the kitchen, where the cook has left stew warming in a black pot. Ellen ladles herself a bowl and eats by the window, watching snow pile slowly against the sill. The cat sleeps nearby, curled into a spiral, purring so faintly she feels the sound more than hears it. That night, she dreams not of voices or halls or mirrors, but of hands. Dozens of them, reaching not to take, but to hold, to steady. They pass objects to her gently, ribbons, books, bread, buttons, thread, folded notes. Each hand is familiar, each gesture a blessing. She wakes with her fingers curled as if still, holding something precious. And she is. The next morning the snow still falls, though softer now. Ellen tends to the garden in silence, brushing snow gently from the stone she placed months before. Each one still bears the names she gave. None have faded. She speaks them out loud, one by one. Mari, Alex, Idris, Maddox, Wind. She finishes. The wind stirs just once, gentle and warm, though everything else is frozen. She closes her eyes and lets it brush her cheeks. Inside, the hallways glow with candlelight. Someone has lit every sconce. The walls shimmer like they remember a holiday, though no one has spoken of one. At the hearth, she finds a small pin inside of sugared almonds, each wrapped in parchment. On each slip of paper is a word: rest. Listen, bloom, remember. She places the tin on the chapel altar and lights a candle. The wax runs slowly, golden and fragrant. Evening comes quickly now. The sun dips low before she's finished her rounds. She lights the lanterns early, her footsteps muffled, by the carpeted halls and the snow-muffled silence beyond the walls. She hums her favorite tune as she walks, a soft melody with no real beginning and no end. When she returns to her room, she finds her book already open on the table. A new page has been written not in her handwriting. You have tended the silence. Well, the house sleeps peacefully because of you. You are its voice even when you don't speak. She touches the words and feels warmth, as if the ink has just dried. She doesn't cry, but she smiles, deeply, softly, like someone hearing their name in a dream. That night, the snow stops. The stars come out clear, cold, shimmering dot, and in the bell tower, the great bell sways just once, a low, golden tone. Ellen, half asleep beneath her blanket, smiles and whispers back, "I hear you." In the morning, the sky is clear, so clear it feels like a new kind of silence. The snow glows in the sunlight, untouched and glittering, like the castle has been wrapped in crystal. Ellen rises slowly, breathing in the soft warmth from the coals, still smoldering in the heart. Her shawl slips over her shoulders like a second skin. Everything is still, but it is a peaceful stillness, not the kind that waits, the kind that rests. She carries her book beneath her arm and steps through the halls as though walking through pages. Each corridor holds a chapter, each door a footnote. Her fingers trail along the walls, and they feel smoother now, not so cold. Like the stone itself is sighing, not from burden, but from comfort. The chapel glows with morning light. Dust motes drift lazily through the air, catching the sun like specks of gold. She lights a single candle, places it beside the small tin of almonds. It flickers gently. Nothing supernatural, nothing strange, just warmth. Dot. She sits for a moment, hands folded in her lap, listening. There's no sound, but she feels a response. Not in her ears, but in her chest. Like the castle has curled up around her. Like the walls are breathing slower. Outside, the garden is still blanketed in snow, but the stones she uncovered months ago are free of frost. She clears the paths with a broom, her footprints the only ones marring the white. Birds land near her quiet, fluffed, unafraid. She hums softly as she works. Later, in the blue room, she finds a folded cloth on the armrest of the velvet chair. She recognizes it. It's one she lost weeks ago, soft cotton, embroidered with spirals and blue thread. But it has been mended. The tear is gone. The edge is reinforced. And in one corner, someone has added a tiny stitched star. She presses it to her face and closes her eyes. When she opens them, the room feels warmer dark that evening. She prepares the great hall for nothing in particular. She lights the hearth, dusts the corners, straightens the benches. No guests are expected, no visitors do, but she does it anyway. The act of care itself is enough. The room thanks her by staying bright. The fire dances, even when the draft howls down the chimney. The chandelier sways without creaking. Dot. She sets the table with simple plates and lays out 3 cups of water, spaced evenly. No reason, just instinct, just feeling. The cat curls in the corner, blinking slowly, its tail flicking now and then. Dot in. Her room, her book now lies closed beside a small pouch of dried lavender. She hadn't placed it there. The fabric is soft, the smell calming. She tucks it into her pillowcase. Dreams come quickly. She dreams of a hallway with no end, lined with lanterns that flicker on one by one as she walks. Each light reveals a moment. The doll, the bell tower, the note beneath her pillow, the blue glass window, the hands that passed her gifts, the girl in the mirror, the pressed violet, a voice many voices murmuring softly, not words, but presence. Together they breathe. She feels no need to wake, but when she does, she feels rested in a way she's never known, like she's slept in the arms of something sacred. That morning the castle is utterly still. No wind, no creaks, no bell, and yet she hears something. A single note, not music, exactly just a sound. A hum, as if the very air is singing back to her. She carries her book to the attic one last time. The mirror waits. She stands before. It's dark in the reflection. She sees herself. Not younger, not older, just old. Behind her in the glass stands every figure who ever passed through the castle. Not clearly, not detailed, just shapes of light and motion. Each one familiar, each one glowing faintly, like paper lanterns in the fog dark. She places her hand on the mirror, and this time the glass is warm. She opens her book and writes one final line. I was never alone. She closes it gently dot, and the wind stirs again outside the tower. The bell does not ring dot, it doesn't need to. The castle, in its slow and sacred way, nods in return. The day passes in a gentle hush, like the pause between verses in a lullaby. The snow outside has started to melt, slow rivulets tracing paths down stone gutters, dripping rhythmically into the courtyard fountain. Ellen walks beneath the archway. That leads to the garden, her boots pressing into the softening ground. The air carries a scent of thawing soil and moss, and far above her, crows wheel through the pale sky in wide, lazy circles. She moves without urgency. The house doesn't demand anymore, it simply offers. The bells remain silent. The hallways stretch long and sunlit. Dust clings to the edges of the windows like lace, catching the glow of midday and turning it gold. In the stairwell near the west wing, she finds a single feather white, soft, unfamiliar. She picks it up and holds it to her cheek. It smells like rosemary and old parchment. She tucks it into the binding of her book. Dot in the blue room. The tapestry has changed again. It now shows the castle itself, not just a building, but a figure cradling its walls like arms around a heart. And in the center, a girl with no name stitched below her, her face turned slightly upward, lit by stars instead of firelight. Ellen stands quietly before it, unsure when the image appeared, but she does not question it. She simply places her hand to her chest and bows her head. Later, she brings warm water to the cat, who has grown older somehow, though no time has truly passed. Its fur is grayer now, its eyes half lidded, but it purrs the same quiet rhythm, and she scratches behind its ears. She places a small cushion by the fire and lifts the cat there. It doesn't move for a long while, just blinks slowly, absorbing the heat and the stillness like a sponge dot. She returns to the chapel near dusk. The light is changing again, painted orange and pink across the snow outside. Inside, the silence feels deeper. Not empty, but sacred. She walks the aisle slowly, her fingers brushing each bench, her breath steady and low. She leaves a small piece of bread on the altar beside the now dried snowdrop and tin of almonds. It's an offering, yes, but not to a god. To memory, to the house, to everything that braved before her. and everything that will after. That night, she wakes suddenly, not in fear, but as if someone had gently placed a hand on her shoulder. The fire is still burning low. The room is dark, but the air is warm. She sits up, her ears open, heart calm. She hears something faint, a soft knocking. Not on wood. On glass dock, she rises and follows the sound. It leads her to the small staircase beside the library. A window, frosted and narrow, rattles just once. She opens it. Outside, the moon is full and high. The courtyard below is still and silver, but standing just beyond the edge of the path is the girl in blue. No longer distant, no longer misty. Her face is clear. Her hands are folded dark. She does not speak, but she smiles dark and slowly, with the gentlest motion. She bows. Helen steps back from the window, breath catching in her throat. When she looks again, the courtyard is empty, but the snow where the girl stood has melted in a perfect spiral. She sleeps. Again that night, and the dream comes not as a vision, but as a return. She walks the castle halls not as a visitor or servant, but as someone known. Each room opens for her. Each stair rises to meet her feet. The people she once saw in glimpses pass beside her, smiling, nodding, carrying bowls of soup or baskets of thread. She walks beside them, among them, as one of them dot, and when she wakes, she doesn't rise right away. She lays in her bed with her eyes open, the dawn light warming the edges of the room. Then she smiles, softly, fully, and says aloud, "I'm home." The days that follow move like slow streams, quiet and steady. Ellen continues her rhythms not because she must, but because she wants to. She finds peace in the simple gestures, the way a broom clears a path, the way fresh linens fold with weightless grace, the way candlelight leans and flickers when she whispers to it. The castle has grown softer too. Its silence feels like a hand resting gently on her back, guiding her without words. Even the walls seem smoother beneath her fingertips, warmed not just by the hearth, but by history that which hadn't ticked for years, now gives a quiet click whenever she passes. She has become part of the pulse dot in the garden. The last of the snow has melted. Green pushes up from dark soil, early shoots curling toward the light. She wears no gloves now. She likes the feel of the earth beneath. Her nails, the texture of life returning. She hums as she weeds, her tune carried on the breeze. Sometimes she thinks she hears it echoing back from the trees. The little girl returns once more, this time with no bag and no escort. She arrives at the gate just before twilight, hair braided, cheeks pink from the wind. Ellen finds her sitting on the chapel steps, eating a plum and kicking her feet. "I knew you'd still be here," she says. Ellen smiles and sits beside her. "The house didn't let me go." The girl leans her head on Ellen's shoulder and closes her eyes. Good. It needs someone who listens. They sit there until the stars come out, and neither of them speaks another word. That night, Ellen takes out her book again. The pages are nearly full, the cover worn and soft with handling. She writes slowly, her pen careful, deliberate. She records the day, the sound of the garden waking, the warmth of the girl's head against her shoulder, the way the chapel candle beamed. Not quite ghosts, just company. Dot this time. She does not touch the mirror. She nods to it like a friend passing on the road. The next morning, a letter appears tucked under her shawl. The paper is thick, the writing simple. The manor beyond the hills seeks a listener. We do not ask you to go. We ask you to know. You are welcome wherever you walk. She reads it twice, then she sets it in the fire. Some things are not invitations. Some are confirmations. The house doesn't ask her to leave, nor does it beg her to stay, Dot. It simply trusts her, and she, in return, trusts it. Snow returns for a single night in late spring. A brief flurry, soft and slow, barely enough to coat the grass. Ellen watches it fall from the blue room window. Wrapped in the blanket the cook had given her, she sips tea made from dried sage and honey, her feet tucked beneath her on the velvet chair. Down below, the garden glows beneath the snow-green sprouting beneath white. Life beneath silence. A reminder, the bell does not ring. Dot, it only sways once, just enough to say, "We remember," and Ellen, watching the snow fall, whispers back, "So, do one." The air has changed again. The snow melted as gently as it came, and in its place the earth breathing with her, still slow, still patient. But awake, Dot, she dresses in silence and carries a book with her into the chapel. The air inside is cool, but no longer cold. The stones underfoot are warming. She lights 2 candles today instead of 1. As the flame catches, it dances without flickering, steady as a heartbeat. She places her palm on the altar and bows her head, not to pray, but to acknowledge, the way one would greet a friend who has carried you a long time. Outside, the garden is bursting. Lavender, thyme, sage, marigold, each row in bloom, each bed thick with color and scent. The bees have returned in numbers, their buzzing low and content. Ellen kneels in the dirt, gloveless, her fingers tracing the roots of something she doesn't remember planting. It grows in a tight spiral, pale blue and shaped like a star. She says nothing, but she smiles that the cook has begun baking more than usual. Trays of warm bread, honey cakes, dried fruit pies, all left out cooling on the windowsills like offerings. When Ellen passes, she always finds one waiting for her. No name written, no instruction, just presence, just welcome. The cat, slower now, always arrives after her, curling at her feet and purring without expectation, dotting the evening. She dreams differently, not of people, not of voices, but of the house itself. She dreams of its bones being carved from mountain rock, of its timbers whispering as they're raised into the sky, of its first breath, the moment the front doors closed for the very first time. In the dream, she stands inside it, not as a servant, not even as a keeper, but as a part of it. She is the wind that moves through the windows. She is the whisper in the dust. She is the warmth in the brick after the sun fades. She is not living inside the house. She is the house. She wakes without alarm, without fear, without even surprise. It all makes sense. Now, she rises early and visits the mirror in the attic one last time. It reflects nothing, not even her. Only light, soft, pale, endless. She does not cry. She does not sigh. She simply smiles and closes the cloth over it for good. She carries her book to the garden that afternoon. The sun is strong. The air smells of mint and damp stone. She finds the flat stone where she first read the letter with no seal. She opens her book, now nearly full, and places the last pressed violet inside. The page bears no writing. She leaves. It that way, no final line, no... Sound of water flowing again through old gutters and narrow garden channels. Ellen continues her work, but by now, it no longer feels like work. It feels like tending to someone beloved. When she sweeps the floors, it's like brushing hair. When she opens windows, it's like letting breath return to lungs. When she lights a candle, it's like setting a star back in the sky. Each task is an act of care, and each moment responds in kind. Nothing asks anything of her. The house is quiet because it is content. She finds herself laughing more sometimes for no reason at all. A robin hopping across the chapel ledge. The cat trying to catch sunlight on the floor. A breeze that plays with her braid and then disappears. Her laughter feels deeper now, like it comes not just from her chest, but from the walls around her. Like the castle is laughing too, softly, the way an old friend does when they see you happy. The little girl hasn't returned in some time, but Ellen finds her presence everywhere. A ribbon tied around a branch. A doll's button resting near the windowsill. A drawing made in chalk of two girls holding hands beneath the stars. Ellen saves none of it. She leaves it all where it is, letting the wind decide when and where it fades. One evening, a storm rolls in. Not violent, just thick. In the bell tower without knowing how she got there. The door is open. The bell still hangs in its place, unmoving, but she hears it, not ringing, just existing. She sits near the edge, the storm wind curling in through the open arch. A rain mists her skin. She closes her eyes, breathes, and listens. Not to the storm, but to everything else. She hears laughter from summers ago, footsteps of visitors who never spoke, the turning of a page in a long-closed book, the sound of her own heartbeat, echoed in Stone Dot, and beneath it all a sound so gentle it nearly disappears, the castle humming like a lullaby played on the edge of sleep. She stays there for a long time. When she rises, the rain is fading. The moon is out again, silver bright and clean. She descends the tower, step by step. Hand on the rail, Dot, she knows what comes next. The final morning arrives like all the others, softly, slowly, with golden light peeking through her window. She makes tea. She feeds the cat. She opens every window in the house. She sweeps. She hums. She tends the garden. She lights a fire. She writes nothing in her book, Dot. She walks the full length of the manor one last time. She touches every door, every frame, every rail. She speaks softly. From within. She smiles and keeps walking. Soft footfalls fading into the tall grass of the hills. Some say the manor is haunted. Some say it breathes. Some say if you walk quietly enough through its hall, you can still hear it humming far beneath the stone. But the house will never tell Dot it. Only remembers. And it remembers her Dot, always Dot, forever Dot the listener.